Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our second Open for Opportunity Roundtable of this week here in the great state of Michigan and in Metro Detroit. We are so thankful to Chris and the entire Goldfish Swim School team and family and so many of your franchisees here to host this important conversation. As part of this roadshow, IFA has been now in 16 different markets over the last 2 years to highlight the role that franchising plays in the economy, the data behind the role that franchising plays in supporting the workforce, and more than anything, the stories that make up the franchise business model and what makes it so incredible for so many people from all walks of life to go into small business ownership and create local employment opportunities and small businesses that help uplift those communities in which they operate. And franchising is so much more than just the restaurant industry, and we have such great examples of that here today. So I am grateful to Chris for hosting us. I'm going to let him welcome the group to the discussion. A couple of quick housekeeping items. So everybody's got a microphone in front of them. Make sure that you turn your mic on before you start speaking. There's a little button here. When you're done speaking, please turn the microphone off. To keep the conversation going, when you're asked your question, if you could do a brief intro of yourself before responding to the question, that would be great. And we do have a large group here. We want to end on time, so try to keep your answers as short and concise as possible. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and we'll get into the conversation.
Matt, thank you very much. He's much more polished than I am, so I'm going to read something this morning and welcome everybody in. This is larger than what I envisioned. This is wonderful to see everyone, and we're excited to be together today. So it's my distinct pleasure to welcome everyone today. This is really fun to show off this office, to talk about franchising, a business that's very important to all of us that are in this room. We're honored to have representatives from the IFA, Matt and team, several esteemed Michigan franchise brands, several of our franchisees, which I thank you for the support, and two distinguished members of the U.S. House of Representatives with us. So thank you for being with us today. We gather here to celebrate and highlight the IFA's Open for Opportunity campaign, a powerful initiative that showcases the numerous benefits and opportunities that franchising brings to our communities. Through the authentic voices and experiences of franchisees, this campaign emphasizes the substantial impact franchising has on the workforce, multicultural and veteran communities, and the broader community at large. Franchising plays a vital role in driving economic growth, fostering entrepreneurship, and creating jobs. It offers a pathway for individuals from diverse backgrounds to achieve their dreams of business ownership and success. The stories and testimonies from franchisees reflect the real-world impact of this industry, illustrating how franchising has enabled them to build prosperous businesses and contribute positively to their communities. Moreover, Open for Opportunity underscores the inclusive nature of franchising. It provides unique opportunities for veterans, allowing them to leverage their skills and discipline in a business environment. For multicultural communities, franchising serves as a beacon of hope and a vehicle for economic empowerment and growth. Our gathering today is not just about celebrating these successes, but also about reinforcing our commitment to expanding these opportunities further. As we continue to support and promote franchising, we pave the way for more individuals to achieve their aspirations, thereby enriching our society as a whole. Thank you all for being here and for your ongoing support of the IFA and the Open for Opportunity campaign. Together we can continue to create a vibrant and inclusive franchising community that offers boundless opportunities for all. So thank you.
Amazing, Chris. You've been practicing that one. Well, I want to come right back to you, actually, and thank you again for hosting us. This campaign, as I mentioned, is really all about telling the story about franchising, and the story of franchising is really about the people behind the businesses. So when you and your family started Goldfish, was franchising in your plans, and what ultimately led you to pursue a franchise growth strategy?
Yeah, it was not in our plans originally. My wife and I started the business back in 2006. The two of us, we had no clue what we were doing. We had some systems from some other swim schools around the country, but most of it was really kind of created on the job. And so 2 years into it, we were approached by a group. Oddly enough, we have Katie, who was the one who initiated this conversation with her partners at BHB, approached us and said, hey, we love this opportunity. Knew Jenny growing up, swam with her, against her, and said, we think this would be a wonderful business to get into. Can we do so together? So through a few rounds of discussions, we said, hey, Brian, Katie, if we start a franchise company, would you be willing to be our first franchisee? And luckily and thankfully they said yes, not knowing what they were getting into as well, and they've been with us ever since 2008. So it's been absolutely wonderful. We thought we'd open 4 or 5 locations in Michigan, and this is a small family-held business that mom and pop ran, but it's been a wonderful adventure, and we've had so many other franchisees and friends be a part of it since 2008.
Well, Katie, that's a nice segue to come to you. You've had the privilege of being the first Goldfish swim school franchisee here in Michigan, I believe now 16 years with 23 locations. Can you just talk about the journey and now talk a little about the business as you've continued to scale through franchising with Goldfish?
So the journey started, 16 years ago. Jenny asked me to teach the swim team that, when they just started. I was a college swimmer, swam with her, and so I started with her and did that, and I'm like, this is a crazy idea, why don't we do it? And actually, like, to segue with what Chris said, we just thought we would just partner with them, and I didn't know what franchising was. When I think of franchise, I think of McDonald's. I don't think of like swim schools, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And so we delved into this, and it's been a great journey. I mean, we started out, we kind of all faked it to make it for a couple of years, and I think we've been able to be bigger, better, stronger because we're a huge system, not just my 23. There's 160 of us plus, and I didn't realize what franchising can do for owners of a business. I sit on an island oftentimes if I was just owned privately, and I have nobody to ask any questions like, what are you doing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? And in a franchise system, you're allowed to, ask a million people different questions, and frankly, very, very intelligent people. So it's been a great journey, 23, and we'll have 25 by the end of the year.
Do you think, just coming to see a quick follow-up off the script, do you think that you would be in business were it not for franchising?
No, absolutely not. No.
Well, you are not in the minority. I believe 2/3 of franchisees have told us that they would not be in business ownership at all were it not for the support of the business model. Sandra, I wanted to come to you next. We had a chance to meet last night, you and your husband. Great story as well in the Great Clips system. Just talk a little bit about your journey to franchise ownership and another example of what Katie talked about. Most people think of franchising, they think of fast food, and they think of McDonald's or other brands. We got Dunkin' and Panera here that I'm drinking this morning. Got to represent all of my different members in many different ways, but the restaurant industry is only 40% of the franchise community.
Correct.
And so talk about your experience in Great Clips.
Okay, so my husband and I got into Great Clips about 22 years ago. He is a veteran. And at the time, my company, I was a CIO at a mid-sized company, and that company was being sold. And I knew they were going to put their guy in, and it was going to be a guy. And I needed to find something that I could do to use my talents. And we started looking at franchising. And I wanted something, being a little bit older and living through the 80s, that was recession resistant. Couldn't be sold by Amazon and couldn't be made in China. And haircutting fit perfectly. I didn't want to do food. So we got into Great Clips, and what has been really rewarding for me as a woman and an advocate for women is seeing the difference we make in our stylists' lives. Our stylists are making between $60,000 and $70,000 a year, and that is a huge differentiator for them. I was interviewing a woman once, and she kept asking me if she could make $300 a week. And I kept saying, yeah. And the 4th time she asked me, I said, well, why are you asking me? And she said, well, I'm about to lose my house to foreclosure. And my staff makes between around $1,000 a week easily. And I said, yes, you can, so it kept her house out of foreclosure. I've seen my staff being able to buy new cars. We offer stability, we offer a living wage, and as a female business person, that is really important to me to support women because it's hard out there. It's really hard. So that's how I got into it, and I love it. I'm very happy. But to the same question, if I did my own business, I wouldn't be in business because you have to worry about marketing, you have to worry about legal, you have to worry about setup. There's a big misconception that the franchisor pays for all that. I figure out my marketing, I do the build out, I hire the staff, I manage them. Nobody else does. So that's important to know too. A lot of people don't know that. So.
That is definitely a misperception that we face.
Yeah.
Oftentimes in franchising, as it relates to some issues in Washington and around the states, that we're grateful that we have two great leaders here representing Michigan that help us navigate some of those issues. So that may be a good segue for me to come to Mr. Wahlberg here. You have been such a great leader in both the committees that you serve on in Congress, many of the committees you serve on, but in particular around franchising. I think now more than ever there seems to be a focus on franchising from various regulatory bodies that in some ways are making it harder for our brands to support these franchisees whose stories we're going to hear about today. Could you just talk about a little bit of that in your role with oversights, but also maybe the perception of franchising amongst your colleagues and how we can help continue to work on that?
Matt, thank you, and thanks for being here. And it's great. I'm tempted to do what Hulk Hogan did last night. Show you my swimming suit. No, I didn't bring that. But it was interesting. I just got this text the other day from Riley Gaines, a swimmer, and she had just come out of swimming from Alcatraz to San Francisco. Did she go through Goldfish?
She did not.
She didn't, but
future brand ambassador
she
there.
did, but she survived that. And then it's interesting to note that the chaplain of the U.S. House, Margaret Kibben, Rear Admiral in the Navy, Chief of Chaplains, she's swimming tomorrow, Saturday, across the Mackinac Straits for another charity. Riley was doing it for a charity as well. But it's interesting how swimming has impact, and it impacts all around. And you think of all of the goldfish that have come through your program in the future, what they might be doing, not simply enjoying the water, but making impact as a result of swimming. I've been on the Education and Workforce Committee for 16 years now. Have fought to stay on that committee, even though being on Energy and Commerce also, and chaired the Workforce Protection Subcommittee for 3 terms, also, which deals with all of these areas that touch franchisees and that whole industry that's out there. And I've wondered throughout the entire time why we want to put rules in place for joint employer, for instance, when nobody in the industry is asking for those rules to be implemented the way they are, and to take the benefit from being a franchisor and a franchisee, having the safety and security that is there and available, but not necessarily mandated and wanted at all times, and having the ability to be an independent, just like the testimonies already, the independent business person, employing people, giving them an opportunity for a leg up. I have an employee that started out at Great Clips, or employee's wife that started out at Great Clips, and now she's starting her own business, having had that experience as well. And that gives those opportunities for people to do what America has always said we want people to do, to have the benefit of the American dream, and in certain cases have the backup that helps you through the process. And I've talked with, think of Domino's that used to be in my district. They don't want to be a pizza company. They want to be a real estate company and an IT company supporting individuals who do the business in the industry themselves. And so we continue to push back against various government bureaucracies that want to step in and say, we want to change the whole system. The question is why? Is it control? Is it unionization? And I don't want to get into a big battle here on that. Or is it a lack of understanding of what franchise system offers people? And it's not just the owner of the franchise, it's the individual employees. That the story you told. I can pay for my rent. I can buy my car. I can have a dream, and I can move forward myself as well. So we continue to push in that space to say, listen, everybody wants to make more money, but a standard for the overtime rule could take people out of business, could take people out of the opportunity to expand in management, don't necessarily want the remuneration as much as to be that assistant manager with the dream of being the full manager in the system. And so that's where the pushback, and if that's what you're asking, that's where I'm at. Just wondering, how can we get it out to colleagues of mine? I'm glad on the issue of the franchise rule, it was a bipartisan win there. The president vetoed it, but ultimately the courts have stood, and I guess today are going to, the agency is going to back away from pushing further. But that's where an organization like the association stands ready, because they're going to come back in some other area, somehow, some way, to put some more controls, regs, impediments in the way of something that really doesn't need to be regulated, as they're talking about. So we'll keep battling in that area. And Haley and I serve on the Education and Workforce Committee together, and we have stood together on a number of things, including the CRA that we signed on, and pushing back on some of the approaches that have been taken.
Well, we certainly appreciate your leadership on so many of these issues impacting the franchise model. And Congresswoman Stevens, similarly, Congressman Wahlberg mentioned your role on education and workforce. The benefits of the franchise model, I think, are obvious to us, certainly, and to lawmakers like you who have supported us so many times. Franchisees are better in touch with the needs of their employees. They're in the communities in which they operate. Franchisors are focused on, building the brand, supporting their franchisees with technology and marketing and other things you'll hear from franchisees here. But I think oftentimes there can be a disconnect between supporting business, meaning that you're anti-worker. And we think, there's a role for both, and franchising is a great way for workers to get ahead. Our research shows that employees in the franchise model earn on the wage side 2.2 to 3.4% higher in wages, have better benefits programs in place. Franchisees are also able to do that because of the economies of scale of the business model on the supply chain side and with other supports. So how can we help continue to get that message out in Congress, and what are some things that you'd like to share with the group regarding your work in Congress to support franchising?
Well, first, it's a total delight to be with all of you in Michigan's 11th District, Troy, and at this incredible establishment, Goldfish, which is so symbolic of the American dream and entrepreneurship and innovation that exists in droves in our country, and particularly here in Michigan. And it is a real delight and honor to be with my colleague, Mr. Wahlberg. He is a senior member of the Education and Workforce Committee, so he's way high up on the dais in committee, and I just am one up from the bottom. Okay, third term, it takes some time. And I have to say, too, IFA is really one of the best in business in terms of trade associations. And now being in my third term in Congress, I think back to my first 6 months, and you all reached out, you planned engagements, you sat down with me, we've done some good work together amidst all the pressures that take place in Washington and with the lawmaking process. And it's also great and smart that we have Brad Williams here from our Detroit Regional Chamber, because they've been great partners on this topic as well. So all I can be is honest, and so that's what I'm going to do here. Is look, we really have a story to tell, and you all do. Sandra, I was taking notes when you were talking. I just think your family's story, your personal journey. I come from a family of women business owners who who started their own thing, different model, but completely hear you on the benefits of the franchise approach. And let's be honest here, we are talking about wealth generation. We are talking about people's lives. We are talking about minimizing bureaucracy so people can do something that they love and have the dignity of work. And I just believe, in my time working on all these different issues and spending great time with IFA, is that a lot of times we get unintended consequences with some of our legislation. And what happens is you've got one group or a set of groups that have all these ideas and they're on one side of things, and this could be like this CRA that has come down, and then there's a whole other reality. And I am very sensitive to what takes place with our national lawmaking. This isn't, Tim and I aren't in Lansing. I mean, we are in the nation's capital passing federal legislation that impacts the entire country. And there's a real responsibility that comes with it. And sometimes that's why you hear that term gridlock, right? Because, we've got to pause. We've got to look at what we're doing, and we've got to make sure all stakeholders are accounted for and that their narratives are in place. It's like you said, Sandra, it's already hard enough for people. I mean, to sit there in that interview with somebody and hear, I'm at this close to losing my house from foreclosure, and it's the year 2024, we're not in the middle of the Great Recession, and we realize what people are facing. We also talked to a host of businesses in other areas because of big legislation that comes down, and the reporting requirements and the bureaucracy creates a whole other cost that comes down to that business. I was just in another meeting with one of our community banks. Here we are with entrepreneurs. Community banks are such an elixir for us. This is the differentiator for the United States of America because we have a large and robust banking sector. People can get loans to start businesses. Well, when we're putting all these regulations on these community banks, they're not even the big ones, they can't do what they need to do to service small businesses. So I'm, as I said, the daughter of small business owners on both sides, mom and aunt, and my dad. My dad's still running a small business. Don't get me started. I keep saying, Dad, are you sure you don't want to retire? Well, he loves it. But, and I know what it's like to find the talent, to go in, to run the team, and your narratives in this time that you've all taken out of your busy lives today to be with us, and really thank you, Chris, for opening up your incredible enterprise to host this meeting with everyone here. It's deeply important. It can't fall on deaf ears. And so just lastly, what I would say, in terms of what I've seen in my briefish time in Congress, is a lot of times when we're actually getting pen to paper and we're actually moving bills, it's this big crescendo and everything comes into play, and they get you, they call it the Christmas tree bill. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't like this in this bill, but I like this, and it gets kind of like shoved down our throats. And we see that with the federal budget making process a lot of times. And this is an area, and where you're counting on us to succeed, where we deeply need to be nuanced. The commas matter, the language matters, and your voice matters. So we have to say, we're not ramming CRAs into large bills. You've seen this term in Congress come through our committee. Was happy to sign on to a responsible letter to our Department of Labor on this front, and responsibly lawmake here. This can't be part of the Washington drama, because it's your lives and it's your success, and that's part of what we're here deliberating on. I don't know who these cameras are, but I'm glad you're here, because no, it's not about me. I mean, of course, look, we got elections coming up, but look, it's their stories that matter. It's their story, and this is the tapestry and so much of the lifeblood of our economy here in Michigan. It's small businesses, it's entrepreneurs, it's franchises, and Katie, you're spot on. It's not McDonald's, and McDonald's is fine too. They employ people, but these are real success stories, and we need to take it seriously, because what I don't want to do is make your lives harder. I want to get out of the way and help you succeed. So with that, Matt, I yield.
Thank you from the dais. We appreciate that. Meg, I wanted to come to you because I want to get back to a little bit of the Goldfish story. And we talked to Katie earlier. She was one of the first franchisees in the system. You similarly have had a great trajectory and have helped really with the scaling in a responsible way the Goldfish system. We've been talking a lot about responsible franchising, and I think Goldfish is a classic example of growing and scaling the right way and supporting their franchisees appropriately along the way. Just talk about the importance of the relationship between the two entities and a little bit of your story.
Absolutely. We have 5 locations open. We've been doing this for 10 years now. Just signed our lease for our 6th location. We were Chris and Jenny's dear friends, and that's how we found out about this. And so years ago, we went on vacation to Wisconsin, where I'm originally from, and my daughter Madeline, who's now 18, could just swim, and my nephew Steven, who's 18, could not swim. And my sister was like, "What is going on? How is this happening?" And I'm like, "Goldfish Swim School. Like, this is what we did." And so my sister ended up opening the first location in Illinois, and so I think she was school number 6. And since then, I'm the youngest of 4, and all of my siblings have opened Goldfish Swim Schools. So between all of us, and my parents will forever be grateful for bringing a child back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to open a swim school, because all of us are all over the country. But between all of us, we have 16 schools, and we own and operate them on our own. My father was a business owner, so he was a great example to all of us of the American dream and building your own business and employing people. And one thing that came out of COVID for us, because COVID obviously was a scary time for everyone, is on Monday mornings we have a call, and it's with all my siblings and our spouses, whoever's involved in the business, and it kind of allows us to talk about what's going on and what our experience is that week, or what our issue is that week. Usually, sometimes we're complaining, sometimes we're celebrating, sometimes we're sharing a best practice, sometimes we're talking about our parents' health. You know, it runs the gamut. And so we've really had this unique opportunity that it's brought my family together, that we have this experience together. And we're so lucky to have the franchise behind us, because to Katie's point, I don't think any of us would be doing this on our own or as successful as we are on our own. And then together, it's made Thanksgiving dinner a whole different conversation. But we're so lucky to be franchisees, and what an opportunity it has given my family.
It's so great. Chris, would you mind just laying the landscape of the entire Goldfish system and how it supports at the brand level the 170 locations and how that impacts the communities in which they operate?
Absolutely. We've got a wonderful support staff here of roughly 55 people, from curriculum to operations to technology, which we've recently added a CTO to our company. Obviously, we understand how important technology is, but it's getting even more important every single day. So, you know, our goal ultimately is, with the systems, with the curriculum that we've created, is to give it to our franchisees to allow them to implement. We are not their employer. We don't want to be their employer. They don't want us to be their employer. And so it's important for us to make sure that we set expectations really clearly up front. When you come on board, you're going to come to Goldfish University. You're going to get trained here. You're going to go back. We'll do some more training on site before you open your doors, but we've given you this playbook, this brand standards manual, to then implement at that local level. Obviously, franchisees can, make some changes when they're working on ways to hire, to train, to support their own people in their facilities. And so it's a neat relationship that I love, where we're able to create the marketing plans that a franchisee can implement locally. Work on a curriculum change that we can then go locally, or have a franchisee come here to implement, learn, and then take back to their employees back to their own location. So I think it's a wonderful relationship that we have with our franchisees, because not only we created and started this, but we are evolving because of their knowledge and their experience, and what Meg said, they will get together as a family and as a group and share best practices with us that we will then implement in our systems as well. Katie does the same thing. It's a back and forth relationship that we have, where we add value, they add value, and we are strong just because the franchisees want to continue to see this brand grow strong into the future together. So I think it's a wonderful relationship, and we are better off because of the smart people that have become franchisees of ours.
Yeah, and I think that mutually symbiotic relationship is what's so special about the franchise model. I think it's one of the areas where, less so on the lawmaker side, maybe more so on the regulator side, it's often misunderstood. We're dealing with this right now with the Federal Trade Commission, with the NLRB, with the Labor Department. And I think franchisees are the ones best in touch with what's going on in that local community, and sometimes on the front lines, right? And bringing that information, the things that they need through franchise advisory councils or franchisee associations back to the brand, and having that voice. And that's something that IFA has long supported, is that voice. And I think right now we're just concerned about the overreach of some of these regulators, trying to meddle in that relationship and try to create like a one-size-fits-all rule that could restrict your ability to navigate those relationships and innovate the brand and provide support and take costs out of the system like so many franchisors did during COVID. I want to take a moment to thank both Congressman Wahlberg and Congressman Stevens for their work and responsiveness during the pandemic in so many different ways. You have some of the best staffs in Washington, and the work on PPP and so many other areas was crucial to recognize that franchisees are independent businesses and could take advantage of all of the relief programs that were available. Did you want to jump in on something?
That you deal so much with the regulatory climate from bureaucrats that are there. So, some are well-meaning, but they don't necessarily have the understanding that comes from being out amongst what's happening. I think some recent decisions, and I don't know whether Haley and I would agree on this one, but the Chevron decision that just came down, that gives us back in Congress a better opportunity and, in fact, a responsibility to regulate the regulators, to get in and say, no, we didn't say go that direction. And that could be on the franchise rule, that could be on overtime rule, that could be on joint employer, and sometimes they even add to it. And we can say, no, that's not your responsibility. That comes through law. And that means that Haley and I, having spent time with franchisees and franchisor entities, understand it hopefully better, and saying, no, that's going to hurt. For instance, to be able to say that under former policy, relative to joint employer, $33.3 billion per year was lost to small businesses. And look at it, 376,000 job opportunities were eliminated. That's real stuff that Representative Stevens and Representative Wahlberg, it gets personal there, because those are our real live constituents we're representing. And so I think we have some court cases and decisions that are giving you more punch, and with entities like yours around this table talking to us and talking to communities of impact out there, gives us a better shot at saying, this is a good way to do it. This is the American way. This is the free market system. This is the American dream. So I just want to jump in with that, because some of those decisions are starting to help us.
Yeah, that Chevron decision is quite important, something the IFA supported. It's Congress's job, frankly, to make law, not the agencies. And if the agencies are going to engage in a rulemaking, they need to do so based upon data, not political agendas or whims, which is frankly where several of these agencies that IFA has been dealing with at the FTC and the NLRB and the Labor Department have been heading. And that has real-world impact for the stories of the franchisees and the brands around the table and around the state and around the country. I wanted to go to Meredith and Drew here, as we are in Michigan, of course, and while I mentioned earlier that most people tend to think of, when they think of franchising, they think of fast food, but probably not in Michigan. They might think of the car industry. And you guys have such a great story that I'd love to let you share from your experience with Z-Bart. Meredith, if you would, please.
I'm going to let Drew go. Drew is the front end of our business, so.
Yeah, I really enjoy being in the Z-Bart franchise network. I actually worked there for 10 years before I decided to buy in and run the franchise. I've been there for almost 4 years now. We're doing that. And I have previously come from working for her parents in the Big B franchise network. So I already knew a lot about franchise and all that. And that's what made the decision a lot easier on both of us to decide to go forward with this, especially during COVID times. As mentioned, that was rough. And doing a deal during that, it was, do we do it or not do it? But knowing that we had the systems in place to back it up and keep it going, and I'm sure everyone can agree that a brand name goes a very long way with it, because trying to do something on your own, you're just one person. We have everyone standing behind us, multiple other franchisees, and brand name goes a long way.
And maybe just a quick follow-up question, if I may. We hear a lot about sort of the state of the auto industry, and the Biden administration has been very focused on providing support for things like electric vehicles. But what we hear is it's very difficult and expensive for people to purchase new cars today. So how is sort of the state of the aftermarket industry doing, and how is your business doing in this environment where there's very little movement, I think, in the new car category?
We have noticed that people are keeping their vehicles a lot longer, and they're paying an exorbitant amount for these vehicles, so they understand we need to protect our vehicles. We're doing very well. We're up a good number for the year, which is great. And people are saying, I need to protect this vehicle for as long as we can. What else can we do for it? And they very happy with our products that we do, and we love servicing them.
Well, it's a great brand, and I know celebrating a significant anniversary, I believe 60 years, one of only several dozen franchise concepts that have been around and really stood the test of time. And I'll put in a little plug for the Detroit Historical Museum right now, where Z-Bart has a display at that museum celebrating that milestone anniversary that IFA was proud to support.
Well, one, we're really proud of you, and I love your narrative about how, and Big B too, I've followed their franchise model for a long time, and obviously there are a host of other policy issues surrounding the aftermarket, which we're really quite receptive to. I'll just also say, dovetailing on something that Mr. Wahlberg shared, who's a great colleague to work with on these matters. It blows me away as a lawmaker. Part of my job is to, when I get to Washington, people come in with their policy considerations, and we take a series of meetings in between votes and committee hearings, and it's really quite exciting. But when people come in over and over again, they're coming in with these rules and these, I don't know where it's coming from, but it's coming from the federal government. And it's these, if it's a reporting structure or something that's causing a big headache. And truthfully, as a lawmaker, sometimes it blows me away how and I'm not talking about the tax code, which is a whole other story. I'm talking about all these different agencies in a variety of different, we're not here talking about healthcare, but that comes up a lot. And it just blows me away that we're in that level of detail that is causing sometimes these headaches. And so I'll tell you, the first piece of legislation I ever got passed it was my first 6 months in Congress, was for the voice of the small business. And we have, another agency, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that is a newer agency that was created after the Great Recession. And here I am doing an amendment, right? So this isn't a bill, but it's an amendment to some of the improvements that we were trying to make to the CFPB. And the amendment was requiring small businesses, community banks, and credit unions to sit on one of their advisory boards. So I'm a brand new member of Congress on behalf of, Michigan, and someone in leadership asked me to lead this amendment that made it to the floor, and the vote gets called, and I was so excited about it. I went up to my colleagues, on my side of the aisle. I said, "You're voting for the Stevens Amendment on small businesses now being required to be on one of these advisory boards with CFPB?" And they said, "Of course." And then I go to the middle of the aisle. Well, I didn't know the middle of the aisle is sometimes where the toughest members of Congress said, right? Like they tend to be, Tim knows, they tend to be the no caucus. Well, I'm naive. I go up to him. I said, I got this amendment. It's bipartisan. Okay, they're like, all right, we've heard that before. I said, no, this is about small businesses, and the I'm from Michigan. This is about the voice of small businesses. So one guy goes, all right, you convinced me, I'm voting yes. Another guy goes, all right, you convinced me, I'm changing my vote. So, and again, we take thousands of votes a year. But the importance of this is that vote passed. I only lost 10 votes. I mean, it passed overwhelmingly. And so when we have common sense and when we just say, what are we actually doing here? And I'm glad to hear about this court case being, it's a big change with Chevron. I'm still making my way through it. But I do agree, because a lot of what comes to me are these rules that come down, and then all of a sudden, what authority do I have as a federal lawmaker? Power to the pen, CRAs, Congressional Review Acts, and all this and that. But we need to kind of slow down and take it back to the basic tenets of our Constitution, frankly, which is that Article 1, the Constitution, the Congress passes the laws, we do the budget, and look, we're a much bigger country than we were during the time that the Constitution was written. But that's a real guide for us here too. So I'll stop, because these stories are great, and now I want to come visit all of you. I got to come to Z-Bart. I've spent time with some of your counterparts in the field, and I know aftermarket is something we're getting closer on, but we need to work on. And you're spot on that people are keeping their cars longer and they're relying on you, and you need to have access to the data and the other right to repair challenges. So thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We're going to come to the healthy portion of the conversation now between Brian and Amy here. So Brian, I know you are in the Planet Fitness system, which is really just an incredible story of continued growth, not just here but around the world. And you play a significant role, I understand, with Governor Whitmer, serving on a council, and becomes such a even more importance around health and fitness in the wake of COVID. Could you just talk about your journey into franchising from commercial real estates and what that's meant to you and your family?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I want to say thank you very much. I'm grateful, Matt and Chris, for being invited to participate in this. We opened our first Planet Fitness franchise in 2008 here in Livonia. My wife and I at the time, and our two young daughters, were living in New Hampshire, which is where Planet Fitness was founded. And we got to know more and more about the business model, and most of the territory in that part of the world was taken. So my wife, being originally from St. Clair Shores, we made a decision to pack up the family and move back to Michigan. That first location, and speaking of franchising, we had to pledge everything. Our house was on the line, our cars were on the line, everything was on the line, and it was 2008. But thankfully, Planet Fitness is an incredible business model, and so we were able to weather the storm very well during the Great Recession. In fact, we were opening at a pretty good clip early on. As I said, we signed that first franchise agreement by itself, and then we added 13 more. Today, we own and operate 64 Planet Fitness locations, mostly here in Michigan. We have a handful in Toledo, and then we just did an acquisition in the Chicago market. Opening our fourth downtown Detroit location, which we're very proud of as well, because one of the things that we've committed to is making sure that we're opening locations in underserved areas. So we're very excited about that location, which is going to open in August. I'll answer the question in terms of the community impact, but I wanted to touch on just the impact overall. Our business today employs over 900 employees, and I think, like a lot of you, we've had employees that have been with us for 16 years, for 10, 12 years, and we've seen kids that have started at the front desk that now have families, they've bought houses. That's one of the most gratifying things for me as a franchisee, is to see that and really have built this massive family that we're really proud of. In addition, we have close to 500,000 members here in our group alone in Michigan. So I feel like we're truly making an impact on the health and wellness of Michiganders. in terms of your question in community involvement, Planet Fitness is a brand that was born out of the judgment-free zone. So it was a friendly, non-intimidating atmosphere. And that's part of why we've been very successful over the years. Probably 10 years ago, as part of their philanthropic efforts, they wanted to extend that judgment-free philosophy outside of what we do in our clubs. And they established what's called the Judgment-Free Generation. And they partnered early on, a national partnership with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. So through that, as the basis of our philanthropic efforts, we've worked very closely with the Boys and Girls Clubs in all of the markets here, Southeast Michigan, Grand Rapids, in Central Michigan, and so forth. We've actually built out mini Planet Fitness gyms at a number of the Boys and Girls Clubs locations. Prior to doing that, we were committed to making sure that we were giving back in the communities we were involved in. And one of the stories I wanted to share with everyone was a relationship that we have with the Detroit Police Department. We were approached back in 2014 by an officer out of the 11th Precinct who had 2 colleagues within a month period die of heart attacks. And he asked us, they had a really tired old gym at the 11th Precinct, and he came to us and he said, is there any way you can help us out? And I think he was just expecting we would donate some equipment. But we actually went in there, we redid everything. We put in new flooring, new lighting, we made sure that the HVAC was working properly, we new paint, and we put in all new equipment for them. And that has been the basis now for that relationship where we've done 7 more precincts with the Detroit Police Department. We donated treadmills to every one of the 32 fire stations in Detroit as well, and it's just that's one of the more gratifying things for me as a franchisee is the ability for us to give back and really demonstrate our commitment to the communities where we live and work.
And Brian, your equipment is also in the Commerce Township Fire Department stations, and they even told me I could come there and work out. And it's a really nice contribution. Yeah. And it's a community asset. It's great for firefighters who are there 24 hours. So thank you so much. Yeah.
First responders definitely hold a place in our heart for sure.
Thanks, Brian. I think that this example of franchising giving back is another way that the business model is so powerful because brands develop these national programs, but it's really up to the franchisees to make it their own in the local communities in which they operate. Amy, I wanted to come to you next. A lot going on at Tropical Smoothie with the growth of that business over the last 10 or so years, and I think this conversation is really an example of how so many people have come into franchising from so many different walks of life. You're a great example of somebody moving from the corporate world, kind of what people traditionally think about when they think of, I'm going to go to college and go into a career, and you've made that transition now to small business ownership. Could you just tell us a little bit about that journey and what's going on at Tropical Smoothie?
Sure, thank you. So yes, I graduated from college and went right into the corporate world. And then after several years, decided to actually a little bit different than what I think other people have done. I bought 2 existing bridal salons, so started my own business outside the franchise world, one in Birmingham and one in Plymouth, and owned those for about 15 years. During the time, given any specific time frame during it, we probably had about 9 to 10 employees between the 2 stores. Okay, so then I decided, quite honestly, I was going to retire. Yeah, that didn't go so well. So I was going to retire. I was going to sell the stores, which I did, and spend more time with my kids. And my husband came to me about Tropical Smoothie and talked to me about Tropical Smoothie and the environment of everything's focused on the crew and the people that work there, and I just love that. That's completely who I want to be. and who I focus on every day when I had my small bridal salons. So I ended up buying 4 stores in Michigan, existing stores. I've owned them for 2 years. In December, I bought a 5th store. We now have about 140 employees. So going from, you talk about the benefit of franchises, like you were saying. I went from having 9 employees to now being able to support 140 people that are working with us. And that's one of the great things that I love about franchising, because I wouldn't have been able to do that without the franchise world. And I was very fortunate. Tropical Smoothie, I didn't have all the food background and everything like that, but I had the business background. And so they have been a tremendous help working with other franchisees, having the ability to bounce back and forth and synergize different strategies is amazing, and all the different benefits of franchising. Now we have, I'm able to offer benefits, we all that. So that was where I was going to grow, 4 to 5 stores. And then I started working with these people, and I love the people that I work with. They are some great people. We have wonderful, wonderful all age brackets that I work with, and I wanted to develop career progression for them because I wanted to keep them forever. And so now we are in the process. We bought the rights to 5 stores in South Bend, Indiana. I have 3 deals that are already signed on properties. We're buying 2 properties, leasing another, and we have a 4th one that's in process right now. We started that in October, and here we are, like 9 months later, and we've got 4 of the properties already. So doing that, because I can create a career progression for our crew. And a lot of our crew is actually really excited to be able to move and to do different things and have different opportunities. So when I was, because one of the questions you had asked me before is the community involvement piece of it. When I owned my bridal salons, I also bought a building in downtown Birmingham, which I still own. And as a result of that, I was asked if I would be interested in being on the downtown principal shopping district. And I have been on that for several years. I now am chairman of the board for the principal shopping district. And so, the community involvement is very, very important to me. I've actually gotten Tropical Smoothie involved, and the franchisees that are around the area have been wonderful and have gotten involved in the Birmingham area. But then we're doing the same thing and starting to implement some of the initiatives that we've done here in the schools and the police and the fire department and DPS in the cities that I'm in. So my stores are in Redford, Romulus, Taylor, Livonia, and Dearborn. And it's been great kind of growing that and going into those different communities with it. So thankful, because I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do all of this if it wouldn't have been for the franchise model.
Amazing. We heard a lot about that downtown revitalization and other community revitalization at our roundtable yesterday with Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist and members of the state legislature as well. So, and that's something that we're very proud of. I'm going to come to Steve in a minute to talk a little bit about the role the IFA Foundation plays in doing that. But before I do, I wanted to let Paul, who is also one of sort of a corporate refugee, as we call them sometimes in franchising, people that have come out of corporate America into franchise ownership, and we were chatting just before about Ace Handyman and your journey into that system. Talk a little about that, and particularly, I know personally, particularly during COVID, we were all using services like yours to navigate all the things that we found wrong with our houses as we were sitting around locked in for probably longer than anybody wanted to be. So talk to us a little bit about that as part of your journey.
Yeah, it was a great time to start during COVID. People were tired of looking at their boring gray wall and had us come in and do a lot of painting. Yeah, I had 30 years in corporate advertising, and I remember when I was in my 20s, and I talked to my creative director and went, "Why is there no old guys around here?" He's like, "Oh, you'll find out." And you find out that it's just advertising is just a very energetic, demanding industry. Lots of hours, lots of stress, lots of travel, and I always felt like even as I got older, and even today, I could still do it. I could keep up with those guys, but the industry's really changed. It's gone from newspapers to magazines. People remember what newspapers are. Magazines, TV, radio, billboards, direct mail, different kinds of channels that now are transitioned into like Google and Facebook and Instagram. They're necessity. It's why I use these channels to run my business, but they're not very fun. They're not very exciting at all. And I was like, well, okay, I could kind of sloth through this for the next, 10 years and, retire, get my cake and leave. And then my wife kind of experienced the same thing. She's 18 years, take care of the kids, 18 years out of the financial industry, looked at going back to work and found out she's pretty much going to have to start over. She's like, I'd like to maybe do a franchise or something. So I hooked her up with a franchise consultant who was also a franchisee. And he ran a profile and did one on her and did one on me just for the fun of it. And he actually looked at the both of us, and we had been transferred and moved a lot, and we always bought the junkiest house on the street and then put it back together and then got moved again and started all over again. He's like, you guys are really right for this brand new franchise. And we're like, well, what is it? And he's like, it's Ace Handyman. It's part of Ace Hardware. And we're like, oh my God, we love Ace. We love the brand. I mean, you got 89% people just positive brand recognition about Ace. So it really was not we didn't have to think too much about it. Got the FDD and looked at it, and it was just an eye opener. It was just kind of like, oh my God, this is a right thing for us to do. I looked at, God, I gotta get done with where I am in my job after 30 or another 40 years in a corporate environment, and I'm gonna get my handshake, I'm gonna get my cake, and I'm gonna leave. And what is there to do? I've never worked harder in my life, and we've got a 10-year contract. I got another 6 years on it, but I felt like I got a lot more energy. I love the fact of owning my own business. I do this with my wife, so she and I are 50-50 on this. But it really gave us the opportunity to kind of start over and be a part of a culture that I really love. Ace Hardware people are just amazing people. They're super nice. They're there to help you. So it's in a franchise, it's good. I don't have to run my website. They help us run our website. They help us with advertising. They help us with. We get to go to the hardware show. We get to see the new product. We get to be a part of a culture that's just really, really nice. And we were the first ones in the state to start. And so we started brand new when Ace was doing this. And so we've helped them evolve what the relationship is with the stores, and help them figure out a lot of things that that I think is good. They're looking for people that are not just, I'm going to be my business owner, I'm going to do my thing. They're looking for someone who could be a part of a larger culture, and they're open to that. I'm glad I did this, because this is a company that I can give to my children, or I can sell to my employees, or in the end, I sell this. I mean, we've been in business 4 years, and we've had 2 people approach us to sell. We're not ready, we don't know what its valuation is, but to be able to have someone come to you and say, hey, I want to buy what you have, we feel very proud of being able to grow that and kind of nurture that for the last 4 years.
That's so great. It's really the power of the brand, right? And
Absolutely.
that's what franchising is all about. And each of these stories around the table are so incredible experiences. And not to come back to the government role here, but it's just, these are the stories that we need to communicate to our lawmakers and to the regulators and through the media and through these new channels that help reach those that can influence governments. And one of the ways that IFA has increasingly been doing that is through the work of the IFA Foundation. And I want to let Steve White, who is the president of PuroClean in his day job, and let him talk a little about that role, and a native Michigander himself, but also the work of the IFA's Foundation and our 2 programs, and particularly maybe you could talk about the work we're doing to help underrepresented communities, and our conversation yesterday with Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist and others.
Sure. Well, it's great to be here. Thank you, Matt. I do lead Pure Clean every day. There has been some conversation this morning about how all franchises are not fast food franchise. You need to look no further for evidence of that than out these windows, because that building across the parking lot is one of the fastest growing Pure Clean franchises in North America. We do property restoration. Every day, bad things happen where people work and live. Water, fire, mold damage, and they can't work and live there again until we come and clean it up. So there are 468 franchises around the United States and Canada. And as I said, this is one of them, owned by local businessmen Joe Thomas and Anthony Ciotti. Our headquarters is just outside of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and that's where we do a lot of training. Very unusual. Again, you want to see a difference between the fast food model and other models. Inside my training center is a freestanding 1,200 square foot home. We have a class in-house this week. On Monday, my training director flooded that house with 5,000 gallons of water. By today, that thing will be bone dry. So we train all these franchisees. They have to be certified. This is what we do. And we also don't limit our training to just the franchisees. We work with some other organizations just as a give back to our community. One in particular called Resilience Force has come to the attention on more of a national stage. And as a result, last month, I had a visit from one Julie Sue, our acting Secretary of Labor, in my office because she wanted to see our flood house. First time I've ever had a Secret Service detail in the house, but it was very good to do. I love this work. Where I started is, as Matt said, I'm a born and raised Michigander. I'm actually a born and raised Yooper. So I grew up in Marquette. I went to school at Northern. My family, wonderful family, couldn't afford a college scholarship, and I was blessed with a scholarship from the United States Army. So instead of playing football in college, I was in the Army program. And when I graduated, I owed them the next 4 years of my life as an Army officer. I did 6. And then when I got out to start my business career, of all places in the world, I landed in the headquarters of Domino's Pizza in Ann Arbor, Michigan. That started my business career and my franchise career, and it's been an incredibly rewarding blessing. I met my wife at Domino's headquarters. It's been just truly wonderful to me. On the IFA involvement, IFA's got, there's IFA, the organization that does things to support franchising, and then there's the foundation, which is the part of IFA that gives back every day. And that's what I'm currently really involved with. Probably one of the oldest, most long-standing initiatives inside the foundation is called VetFran, short for Veterans in Franchising. And because I am one, it's my passion project. And I became involved over the years, including being the chair of that committee for several years. And then when I thought I was done, Matt came back and asked me to be the chair of the foundation where VetFran resides. So we do great things there. We love our military veterans. They are made for franchising, right? And so what do we do at VetFran? We find that as service members are exiting the armed forces tend to help them with things like resume writing skills and interviewing skills. Well, those are skills to get a job. What VetFran does is it helps military veterans learn about the opportunity to become a small business owner through the vehicle of franchising. And so we educate them about franchising in general, and we connect them to hundreds of different franchise brands that they can go and explore. And they're just made for franchising, right? The teamwork that the military teaches us, the sense of service and the work ethic, and how to follow systems. What is any franchise? It's a set of systems, right? Old soldiers like me see them as SOPs, standing operating procedures. We convert our language to systems in the franchise, and we go to the moon on that. And so we love our veterans initiatives, and we are really, really successful. So that's one of our most well established. We have several other things. We have we have a whole set of minority initiatives: the Black Franchise Leadership Council, Hispanic, Pride, a bunch of things that we do there. The newest thing that we're doing that Matt made reference to is called the Ascension Initiative. And Brian, you'll find this, Brian, you'll find this particularly, I think, germane, because there are two people named Omar and Raina Simmons who self-described grew up in the hood in Boston. And Omar got a track scholarship to college and parlayed that into a business career, but found ultimately, I think, the corporate life unsatisfying. And they got what they called 19 Planet Fitness fixer-uppers. And they not only fixed them, they built and so many more Planet Fitnesses. They had tremendous success. And a couple of years ago, they sold a huge part of that to private equity. They came right to us at IFA and said, we would like to provide the seed money to start a new initiative to help people like us. Before franchising, there was never any generational wealth on either side of our families. And now because of franchising, we're very wealthy. And so they provided that seed money a year and a half ago. We have built up, people have caught the vision. We've had amazing pledges for funding of this initiative. And we're now at a point we're about to start our first class of 60 people who have backgrounds like Omar and Raina, but have aspirations to build generational wealth in their family for the first time ever. So I tell people I do what I do in the franchise world because we change people's lives. And I watch franchisees put all the money they got in the world into just getting started in franchising, and then I watch them start to grow, and I watch them move their families into a more beautiful home, send their kids to a college nicer than the one that they went to, and you just watch it change people's lives. And to have the privilege of being in a leadership position in this IFA Foundation where we do this kind of work has been one of the most enjoyable things I've done in my career.
You could see why I asked Steve to chair the foundation. As we close out our conversation, I want to come to Jim and Brad for the final words here. Jim, you play an important role in the supplier community, as we call it in IFA land. We have franchisors and franchisees, but so much of the support that the franchisors need to provide to their franchisees comes from our supplier partners. So if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about the role that the supplier community plays and reflect on some of the conversation this morning.
Yeah, no, certainly. And first of all, thanks for having me. Great example of kind of trickle-down economics, right? We talk about all you great franchisees and franchisors out there, and at the end of the day, you're supporting businesses like ours. So what we are is we're a full-service digital marketing agency. We have a platform that helps franchisors control messaging and content and helps franchisees locally get found and be more successful. So really, kind of the role we play in that space and kind of helping promote franchising is the ability to help make the franchisees more successful with with economies of scale as it relates to marketing, because if anybody would have come to us individually and asked for these types of services, they would be paying 10, 15, 20 times for our service versus what we can roll out in a very, very economic way. And as we start talking, Google was mentioned a couple times and some other things along those lines. What is so cool and exciting from our perspective, obviously, internet marketing is always evolving and changing really, really rapidly. I've been doing it for over 15 years under my own brand, 25 years total, so it's an evolving industry. But we get the opportunity to see what's working in St. Louis. We can then drive out to Milwaukee, and what's working in Detroit is this, and if that stops working somewhere else, we can make those quick advertising shifts where, again, if I was working with just one brand in one specific location, that's just not the case. It takes us a long time to try to see the tea leaves of what's happening here. So I think there's a huge value, obviously, in the franchisee-franchisor relationship, and kind of one of the unseen benefits in that from a marketing perspective is really the value that the franchisees get having a a collective entity looking out for their best interests as these areas change. So I think the whole system is truly amazing, and certainly don't lose sight of the fact that my team exists, and the stories of watching employees buy their first house and buy their first car. I've two of my first employees are still with me in management roles that have grown through that. So the pride you feel as a business owner, being able to watch and help and and feed them and grow them and facilitate them and become better human beings and leaders and managers is truly awesome. So I appreciate this community a lot.
Absolutely, Jim. We appreciate your commitment to the franchise community. There are a lot of suppliers that come to IFA and want to think about how they can navigate the franchise model, because it is growing, it is scaling, as we're hearing this morning, and understanding the uniqueness of franchising from a supplier partner perspective is so critical for those that want to do business with franchisors and franchisees. So I want to come to Brad to sort of put a little bit of a bow on this conversation. As you hear, franchising is so committed to the state of Michigan, and particularly here in the Detroit metro area. We appreciate the partnership with the regional chamber, and just wanted you to reflect on some of this conversation and the work that your organization is doing with lawmakers and your members in the community.
Yeah, Matt, first of all, I'm just so excited that IFA chose to come to Detroit for the Open For Opportunity tour. As I reflect on this conversation, it really is natural. Michigan and Detroit are really a hub for franchising, whether it's Domino's and Little Caesars, starting here in Metro Detroit, decades ago, or businesses like Goldfish, who have started within the last couple decades. This area really has been a home for franchisors from the very beginning. But I think back, as a chamber of commerce, we serve all businesses, whether you're General Motors or a solo practitioner working from your basement. But the fabric of us as a chamber of commerce is interwoven with franchisees. Many people who have been Detroiters for many years are familiar with the name Florine Mark. Florine was the largest Weight Watchers franchisee in the United States. I think most people think Florine invented Weight Watchers. She didn't, but she certainly was the most enthusiastic proponent of Weight Watchers, and sat on the chamber board and executive committee and our political action committee for a number of years, and employed 4,200 people at the height of her business. And I also think about Errol Service, who sits on the chamber board, an African American who started at McDonald's working the fry line, and then in 1994 bought his first location, and now owns 15 and employs 1,300 Michiganders. So in Michigan, it's not just about the big guys who start the business, the franchise business, but it's also the franchisees who have used this model as an opportunity to create wealth and create new generational wealth in populations that really need generational wealth. And so we've heard stories of that today, and I would encourage everyone here to keep telling these stories, because as an advocate, as someone who's responsible for telling your stories and your other colleagues in the business community stories to folks like Congresswoman Stevens and Congressman Wahlberg and members of the legislature, I always say you must be present to win. Unless they hear from you, they don't know you're here, right? And it's important for them to know that that your needs are unique from other business owners, but they're really not that different. You need a certain certainty in your labor market. You need a rational regulatory policy, and you need a smart tax structure. Where it is unique is, I think, this business model needs to maintain the trusting relationship between the franchisor and the franchisee. And so when we talk about things like the joint employer issue, where I think that is unique, is that it's one thing for the government to set policy, but maintaining that relationship between the franchisor and the franchisee, so it's not the franchisor who is delivering the bad news and making your life more difficult, is essential to making this business model continue to work. And so I'd encourage you to make sure you're continuing to talk to folks like the two office holders who are in this room, the people who are doing my jobs at your local Chamber of Commerce, whether you're a member of the Detroit Regional Chamber or another Chamber of Commerce. The other thing that strikes me in the same vein as must be present to win, when I heard Amy's story about being part of the principal shopping district in Birmingham and Brian providing fitness equipment to the local first responders, we all know that there is an instinct for all of us to shop local. And support local small businesses. But in fact, when I look around this table, I pretty much see my credit card statement. My daughter is a Goldfish alumni. I stopped at Tropical Smoothie this morning. I mean, I frequent, if not your individual locations, your businesses on a regular basis. And I think there is a quickness to forget that franchise businesses are local businesses. But when you do these sorts of things like engage in your principal shopping district or make donations, or the Culvers down the street that hosts, band night and ski team night that, I eat at Culver's damn near once a week because it goes to the school. I think those are the types of things that really stand out and make people recognize that these businesses are local businesses, that these are your neighbors and your friends that own our businesses. So these are the types of things that, as an advocate for you, someone who tries to make sure your businesses are successful and that the government doesn't put too heavy of a hand on you, these are the things I would just advise you to continue to do to make sure that together we can help you thrive. So thanks for having me here. This has been really, really helpful to hear these firsthand stories.
Thank you, Brad, for those comments. I'm glad we've got cameras here to capture that. That's one to get repackaged and reused over and over again. Yeah, I also like to use, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And showing up is half the battle, right? And so thank you all for showing up this morning. Thank you to our lawmakers for our ongoing partnership in Washington, and to our members here in Michigan. I think for anybody listening to this conversation, clearly Michigan is open for opportunity. Over 23,000 franchise businesses here in the state of Michigan, generating nearly $25 billion in economic output and employing more than 250 Michiganders. So thank you for the conversation today. I'm going to let Chris have the final word before he welcomes anybody who'd like to participate on a tour of their facility.
Matt, thank you. We're just very grateful to the IFA for coming to Michigan, for selecting our location. We're very proud to show it off. And Matt's been a friend and a huge supporter of Goldfish for many years, and we're very thankful because this business is really, really important to us and near and dear to my family, along with Katie and Meg and many of our other franchisees and employees that we employ around the country. So just want to say thank you. These types of events really bring me back to kind of the initial days of opening our business and how exciting it was, how scary it was, and just everything that we thought being a business owner would be. And it brings me back to the roots, and it's really, really exciting to be a part of this with all of you and with our employees and our franchisees. It's pretty fun. So we're very honored. This business has done so much for us. It's been done so much for everyone who's been involved in the Goldfish brand, and we've made tremendous friends and family throughout the last 18 years that we've been in business. And so we're thankful. Thank you for the opportunity today. If you guys need to fly out of here, if you guys can catch your flights, please do. If you want to stick around for a little bit, please do. We'll take you on a tour if you'd like to. If you brought your swimsuit, we'll teach you how to jump, turn, and swim back to the wall. If you want to stick around for a little bit as well. So Haley and Tim, thank you for supporting franchising and for small businesses like ours. This is a collective family that we have here, and we need everyone to participate together to continue to grow and do good things going forward. So we're very thankful and appreciate the opportunity.